Let us sit back and imagine for a moment. It's August of 2015 and the latest Black Butler chapter just dropped. Except it's not a normal chapter. Pausing the main plot to indulge in a silly interlude chapter based around the popularity poll that was held around the same time. Officially known as the Devil 6 Uninhibited, Chapter 107.5 is a wild ride, and we're going to go through it today. We start with Finian announcing that it's time for the results of the popularity poll to be announced. The first page shows spots 10 through 7, counting down to the most popular. We've got Finny in 10th place, Lau in 9th, Lizzy in 8th, and Snake in 7th. A pretty solid lineup so far, if you ask me. When turning the page, we're greeted with a nice spread of the top 6 characters, which are no surprise. Well, actually, Vincent being this high up was shocking to me at the time, but I get it. In 6th place is Charles Gray, 5th place is Vincent Phantom Hive, 4th is Grell Sutcliffe, 3rd is The Undertaker, 2nd place is Sweet Baby Boy CL Phantom Hive, and to no one's surprise, Sebastian comes in 1st. It's actually pretty neat seeing the number of votes for each character, and we get a full breakdown of the results in this chapter as well, including characters that are all tied for 0 votes. Vincent officially starts the chapter by addressing the reader directly, thanking them for their votes and monologuing on how he thought a special chapter like this would be pretty fun, but he never imagined it would turn out like this. Sir, this is Black Butler, the traumatizing things keep happening manga, but I digress. It's time to really dive into the meat of this chapter. The Viscount is throwing a party, celebrating coming into 16th place, and he's only inviting very specific people to attend. It's always the fucking Viscount! I hate this man! Ciel is unimpressed, but Sebastian reminds him that the Viscount has been a rather bothersome character, and Lizzy is among those who are invited to the celebration. It is Ciel's duty to escort Lizzy and make sure nothing nefarious happens to her. Also, the servants want to go to the party too, with Snake and Finny getting page time, while the rest are only speech bubbles, since they didn't make it as high in the popularity poll. A joke that's uses the meta of the media format, which I absolutely love. This chapter is aware of the fact that it is a silly bonus chapter in the manga, and it plays with that pretty well, from addressing the reader directly to cracking jokes about page time per character based on how popular they are with the readers. The criteria for being invited to the party is be in the top 10, or have 6th in your placement. Mark of the Beast, devil number, yada yada yada, we get the joke. But the top 6 get their own special table because those are the only people that matter. Likely so that they can be featured in the chapter more than the rest. It's just a silly, goofy time. I would also like to add, given the nature of what's been going on in the manga, plot-wise up until this point, this top 6 table is like Ciel and Sebastian's nightmare blunt rotation. What is with this matchup? We've got Undertaker sitting next to Ciel, Grell is there, nobody's having a good time. That's not true. I think Grell and Undertaker are having a great time. It's just Ciel and Sebastian that are having an apprehensive time. But I do love how there is this air of tension, especially between Undertaker and Sebastian. It's definitely taking canon into account, which is always really fun, especially for these side chapters that more often than not tend to ignore canon just to put the silly guys in situations. That's not a Black Butler exclusive thing. Side chapters like this in all manga tend to kind of play with canon just to kind of make whatever the mangaka wanted to do make sense. The Viscount welcomes the guests, shares gratitude for the readers, especially those who actually spent money on sending in the voting cards, and toasts to the chosen ones, the Devil 6. However, his bad intentions are soon revealed when the chandelier above the top 6 table crashes down, causing a bit of a commotion, allowing for the Viscount to snag Vincent's 5th place rosette. Is now a good time to mention, Vincent's not physically there, it's just a memorial portrait of him since he is, dead? He had no way to defend himself. In the world of this chapter specifically, a person is granted the right to exist on the page and powers equal to their rank. In other words, the Viscount wants power and attention, so he needed to somehow obtain a higher rank. And being 5th rank means the Viscount can become a baddie akin to something found in a 70s shoujo manga, complete with creating a Black Butler spinoff, a story about his youthful days at Weston. A very classic slice of life shoujo is what he's going for. But everyone does hate the Viscount, so no one is willing to humor him on this. Charles Grey shatters the delusions, wishing to get back to his meal. But this has introduced a new concept, and everyone seeks to gain power. Charles Grey is mildly interested, but 5th is not that much more powerful than 6th. Lizzy, however, does want to seek out the power to protect CL. She's very motivated by love and wishes to do all that she can to keep her dearly beloved safe. A huge aspect of her character that is touched on in the Campania arc. Lizzy as a character is driven by her desires for a happy life with CL and protecting him from the horrors that had befallen him and the future horrors that await. If she's strong enough to keep him safe, then he'll never slip away again. She won't have to worry about him being kidnapped or murdered or whatever misfortune he would bring upon himself as the Queen's watchdog. It's an aspect of her character that is very much like hammered in prior to this chapter and is something that definitely motivates her actions throughout the rest of the manga. And I'm gonna stay on that soapbox knowing what's coming because I think she has her reasons and it's gonna root back to keeping her beloved safe. So we'll see how that plays out, because currently in June 3rd, 2024, we don't really have a resolution to the mild spoilers with Lizzy in the Blue Cult arc. We'll get there eventually. Lizzy and Charles fight, and it's a duel that Charles has been looking forward to. And Frances is just proud her daughter is doing her best and seeking to get stronger. I do really like how the characters that we see seek out power have a very good reason. Some of it is motivated by greed, like with the Viscount, but with Lizzy, it's very motivated by her love and her desires to protect those who matter to her. For Charles, it's not exactly stated why he would want it. You could assume maybe greed for power, but we see other characters who are very content with the power that they have, like Frances. Like, she's just vibing. She doesn't care. And you can assume that there are other characters there that just were not really in on the fight. I'm only saying that because they do have this thing where it's like characters whose popularity has a 6 in it were technically invited, but we don't really see that many outside of Frances and the Viscount. Everyone else is kind of like in the top 10 for the most part. Amidst the fighting, Finney is able to snag Vincent's rosette, seeking to be more useful to CL. He doesn't have a greed for power. He's powerful enough already, but he feels like he's lacking in something to help CL. And we can see this in the Green Witch arc, where he has this struggle of feeling like, is he enough? Is he powerful enough? Is his power enough to step up and protect the life that he cares for, the people that matter to him? He's successful at the end of the day, but there's still that insecurity of, is he enough? And I think that's the motivation for him wanting to have more power, because again, he specifically states it's to be more useful to CL. That's his main motivation. After he gets the rosette, his body does turn into a JoJo's character, but his head did not get the memo. Snake sees the powers granted and seeks to obtain the rosette in order to bring Joker back. I do find this very fascinating. Snake does not seek power for himself. He doesn't seek power to help CL. He seeks power to gain back what he has lost. Snake misses his circus family, and while that's not really touched on after he joins the Phantom Hive Manor up until this point, it's still an ache that he carries, and an ache with no resolution as he holds out hope that he will see them again, just as CL promised. Did we all forget that CL promised if Snake joined him, he would be able to see his family again? The kid was, knowing that they were dead, was like, yeah, man, join my team. Maybe you'll see the people that you seek to again because I'm hunting them down. Ignore the fact they're already dead. But Snake doesn't know that. He wants them to be back. He wants to regain the family he's lost. Sure, he loves his current family, but they're not a replacement. However, snakes are working on their own. They are, in fact, their own characters, and they do sabotage him, gaining the 5th rosette and the ability to talk for themselves. They then seek out stronger rosettes in hopes of gaining arms and legs, which, you know what, me too. If I were a snake, I would have very similar motivations. It's a very basic, I just want to not be a snake motivation. Not a whole lot to say there about that. Seeing the chaos unfold, Sebastian realizes that Ciel is not safe. Unable to defend himself against these incredibly strong and capable opponents were they to turn on him for his 2nd place rosette. However, Grell was a little bit quicker on the realization. She attacks, hoping that gaining the 2nd rosette will allow her to basically medically transition, becoming a femme fatale. Grell also just hasn't been in the manga much in a while, something that is still true in June of 2024, again, June 3rd, so I don't know what the June chapter is gonna look like. Sorry to all the Grell fans out there. Undertaker seems to be amused by all of this, and he's satisfied with his own power as the 3rd most popular character in Black Butler. I also didn't mention this before, but he looks really good in this chapter. I really love that little half-up hairstyle that he's got going on. It's a look. I do find it really fascinating that Undertaker doesn't seek to overthrow Ciel or Sebastian. He's very content where he's at. And I think that somehow foreshadows that Undertaker is not doing what he's doing in the manga for power. He's, as he said, just doing it out of curiosity. Black Butler as a series often features a lot of characters that are very human in their motivations, very greedy and seeking to be their most powerful or their best self or just more than they are. However, Undertaker is like the only antagonist where that's not true. If anything, he's seeking to regain what he's lost, just like Snake is. But Snake's not an antagonist anymore. But they kind of are in that same vein of very motivated by grief. At least that's the way I read Undertaker. Amidst all of the chaos, the snakes are able to capture Ciel and steal his rosette. I'm guessing since Ciel's life was never in danger, Sebastian's spidey senses never kicked in, allowing him to be thoroughly distracted. But now that the snakes have the power of the 2nd most popular character in the series, they are able to come together and form the Giga snake. They don't gain arms and legs, but they do become a giant dragon-esque creature. And of course, Sebastian has to make a comment on how Ciel's rosette granted them the power to grow so large when he himself is so small. But with his rosette taken, Ciel is no longer able to appear on the page. He's finally getting a break. Or is this foreshadowing for the years-long gap between when we saw him before the Servants mini-arcs in the Blue Revenge arc? I don't think so, but it is a really funny point to point out. Or like a joke, I guess. Anyway, Charles Gray is afraid of large snakes confirmed. I'd actually forgotten that part of his character is that he is a bit of a scaredy cat. Just a guy out here murdering, killing, slaying, serving the queen. But also he's afraid of so many things. The duality of man. Just as our ensemble cast are trying to figure out how to take on the snake, Ciel has an idea. Off-page, of course, his dialogue bubbles are marked by an eye patch. If the rosettes are representations of the reader's love for these guys, and they grant the power to those who wield them, then if they unite the powers together, they'll gain the strength needed to take on the giant creature. So Sebastian takes all of the love for Black Butler as a whole, puts all the rosettes placed on his back, and Ciel commands him to defeat the giant snake. We get a flashy little fight sequence that really shows off Yana Toboso's skill in drawing dynamic poses and scenery and just action, she's really good at drawing action scenes. Something that I didn't appreciate the first couple of times reading the manga, but I've definitely appreciated now that I've read more action manga, and it's a lot easier for me to follow what's going on in Black Butler action scenes, I'll be so real. She just does them so well. Once the giant snake is defeated, Sebastian returns Ciel's rosette. Everyone has calmed down and seem to be content with their own rankings, and things settle. The party is over, and Ciel's disappointed that he didn't get to enjoy the food, but it's going to be okay, because Sebastian prepared for this. He knew this was going to happen. And the party seems to move to the Phantom Hive Manor, a familiar place for all of us. Lau names Sebastian the hero who saved London, which I'm gonna go out on a limb. This could be foreshadowing. The manga is still a work in progress, but at the end of season 1 of the anime, Sebastian did technically save London. And given the scale at which things have been escalating in the manga and the way global conflicts have been built up, I'd say it's not a stretch to say that Sebastian may very well end up saving London in some catastrophic event before the manga is over. But that's more theory than legit connection I'm making here. I have this theory that season 1 of the anime knows a lot more than we realize about where the story is going, even if it is presented in a original and loosely tied to the manga way. But anyway, Sebastian is merely one devil of a butler. He mustn't think of himself as a hero. He seems to respond a little weirdly to the notion of being called a hero, which, I mean, he's a demon. Ciel and Sebastian together make a lot of questionable decisions. They hurt a lot of people, but they also help a lot of people. So, like, yeah, they're heroes, but also, no, not at all. They're mischievous little guys. While all of this is going on, Undertaker is just hanging out. He's been here for the ride, and he hasn't really gotten into the fight of gaining more power, but the idea has been weighing on his mind. He shares his power with Vincent, hoping to bring the late Earl back to life, placing his own rosette on the portrait. We've seen already in the Emerald Witch arc that Undertaker has been seriously grieving the loss of Vincent Phantom Hive. We have no way of knowing at the time what their relationship was, but it's clear that Undertaker cares a lot about Vincent and the Phantom Hive family. So much so that he's meddling in family affairs, and it's been alluded to that Undertaker had wanted to retrieve Vincent's corpse to turn him into a bizarre doll or find a way to revive him in some capacity. Now, spoilers for the manga past what the Black Butler deep dives have covered, specifically the Blue Cult arc, but not long after this Devil 6 chapter released. Okay, it was like a good 2 years later or so. We only get 1 chapter a month, so like maybe 20 chapters after this one. We do find out that the Undertaker had been using his bizarre doll experiment to essentially revive the real Ciel Phantom Hive. And I think it's a safe assumption to say he would do the same to Vincent if he could. I believe the Undertaker's actions are motivated by his grief and desire to regain what he's lost, as I said earlier. And we can see that here in the Devil 6 chapter when he places his 3rd rosette onto Vincent's portrait, giving up his own power to see somebody that he cares for live again. Maybe, just maybe, more power would allow Vincent to rejoin the living. But it can't ever be that simple. Vincent takes on his narrator role from the start once more, leaving us with the idea that while love can be wonderful, it can also be the cause of disaster. And I think that perfectly sums up everything that's going on with Undertaker in the actual canon of the series. There's been many seeds planted to connect him to the Phantom Hive family, and we've seen time and time again that he cares deeply and is emotionally invested in the well-being of any living Phantom Hive, including our Ciel, that we see him in danger, but he only endangers Ciel knowing that Sebastian is contractually obligated to save him, so in reality he knows that Ciel's life is fine. The Undertaker's love, while wonderful, has also driven him to create monstrosities in the bizarre dolls and the chaos that he is causing. Such a silly little side story. Who would have thought that it would have genuine insight on some of the characters here? I do want to reiterate, when this chapter came out, we didn't know about CL being brought back to life. All we had was what we saw in the Green Witch arc with the Undertaker grieving Vincent and dropping hints that the twin is still around. But we didn't have the reveal just yet. But it fits so nicely together. It really does. Anyway, this was like a little bit of a shorter Black Butler video. I mentioned at the end of the Green Witch arc, but I'm covering the Blue Cult arc sometime in August or September. So look forward to that. But anyway, that's it for me. That's my little recap and thoughts on the Devil 6 chapter. Love this chapter. It's such a good time. But if you enjoyed that, or if you like other animes and manga, definitely consider subscribing to my channel. I talk a lot about Black Butler, a lot about Baldur's Gate, and anime and manga, just the things that I'm interested in. So if you like the things that I like, you should stick around. We'll have a good time. But anyway, that's it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Goodbye!